And we did a program in the original temple of 17th and Empire, where we started in 1991. How is everything going in the UK? Narada,
Yeah, good,
where are
Maharaj.
you?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yeah, it's fine, I think. I mean, I'm fine. I don't know about everyone else.
Where are you at?
I'm in the southwest. I'm based in the southwest in Bath, which is near Bristol. But I mean, I'm in London quite a bit. I go to the Bhakti Yoga Institute usually once a week. I'm going tomorrow. I'm going twice next week. Yeah, everything's fine, I think.
What's the Bhakti? What is the Bhakti Yoga Institute?
It's the temple in West London. It's the temple next to Heathrow Airport. That's the official name of the temple. That's
Okay.
right. Yeah. I mean, I'm not like going insane, Saraswati.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it was called the Bhakti Yoga
I
Institute.
thought I'd missed something then. Like I was being deceived for 3 years that it was the wrong name.
Oh, you got the right name. I never.
Okay.
We always just called it the West London Temple.
I thought I was in the wrong Zoom call or something.
You're right. That's the legal name for the council.
Bhakti Yoga Institute. Okay.
Yeah, so it's the temple anniversary party next week, Maharaj. I think it's 7 years now. Lucky 7.
That's when the anniversary was? Originally 7 years ago it started?
Yeah, I think it was opened, wasn't it, Saraswati, August 2014?
14.
Oh.
I think you might have been there, Maharaj, for the inauguration.
Yeah, it was. That year, I think that weekend was they had the opening, I think it was on Friday, and then Saturday was a program at the West London Temple, and Sunday was Janmashtami in East London. But then the next year, they didn't do it according to Janmashtami. They did it according to the date. Right?
According to this, I think so.
Yeah, because when I was there, I think it was Friday, then Saturday was a program in West London. Friday was the opening, Saturday was a program, and Sunday, I think, was Janmashtami, and that was in East London, right? Is that correct, Devashish?
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, we always have midnight arti in East London. And
yeah, well, we went there. I was there with Ashram Maharaj, and we went there. I think Ashram Maharaj was there. I'm not sure.
Yes, he was, yeah.
And we went to East London on Janmashtami. I think that was a Sunday. And that's the day before, or Saturday, there was a program. In West London. Friday was the opening with a bunch of ISKCON big shots came there too. Some people who are from Bhaktivedanta Manor and stuff, right?
Yeah, the president of Soho Street came, and one of the main devotees, Kripamoya Prabhu, and his family came from Bhaktivedanta Manor.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so it was a big shindig, huh?
Yeah.
And then, but Sunday was Janmashtami, right? And then the next year, what was it? Saraswati did it according to the dates of the opening on the Western calendar, but not according to Janmashtami calendar, right?
Yeah, I think it was, and has been ever since, the closest Saturday
which is smart in the sense,
Yeah.
in the sense that it doesn't well, I don't know. Kind of think of, I thought of it as Janmashtami weekend.
There will be more attendance on a Saturday than if it falls on a weekday, with people working, etc.
Yeah, that's true. Although we do kind of tend to think of celebrating Krishna's birthday on the day that he appeared. A quaint habit that we have.
I think that year the festival was on Saturday and Monday was Janmashtami, which is exactly what's happening this year, if I'm not mistaken, in 2014.
No,
Yeah, I think you're right.
So this year is happening exactly the same. We had 1 day break and then the festival of Janmashtami happened.
maybe. Yeah, that's possible. It was a 3 or 4 day weekend.
Yeah.
We actually had nice weather then too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I like at West London Temple, when you wake up in the morning and go out into the parking lot, you have that sweet fragrance of aviation fuel. It actually has a sweet smell to it. You could smell it in the parking lot.
We don't smell that anymore, Maharaj.
Why not?
Because
Why?
they close there is no much planes from Terminal 4.
There's no planes going from Terminal 4? What did you say, Saraswati? You're frozen. Highly irregular to not have good bandwidth. What is this?
Mm-hmm.
Saraswati. We've lost her.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there they are. Then
Oh, Saraswati.
Our internet.
Yeah. Are you frozen again?
No, now.
So there's no more planes going off from the airport near the temple?
Well, Ramananda said that now it's only very few. Not everything is back to normal there
Why is that?
because of the COVID, I think, restrictions.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So everything is prepared here, waiting for you, Maharaj.
The only thing I find a little disturbing is that they have these things where they say people who already had vaccinations still get the Delta variant. I mean, like, come on, get your act together. What's this supposed to be? You know, make all these kinds of promises and then, well, we were wrong. Okay.
Yeah, we need some more infallibility from the healthcare community.
Yeah. Good luck with that, huh? What amazes me is that there's so many devotees that are against the vaccine. I mean, from all different parts of the so-called political spectrum, and And people tell me, oh, I never had any vaccine in my whole life. People tell me that. And I'm going, really? What's the matter with you?
I'm just waiting for the appointment, Maharaj.
Waiting for the what?
Waiting for the appointment.
The appointment. Oh, if it's through the healthcare system, you'll never get an appointment.
Well, here they're giving it away at festivals. They give the injection at festivals. When I go collecting, there's just tents up everywhere where they're giving everyone the vaccine. Everyone and anyone.
Well, here they give vaccinations at chemists, pharmacies, everything. You know, like you can practically get vaccinated at a petrol station.
Yeah.
So Maharaj, talking of healthcare, we have a question not from Anonymous but from Benonymous today, which is the question is, should devotees donate their organs at the time of their death, or is there any scriptural prohibition to such a thing?
Well, I guess first of all, it would matter if that question is so pertinent in this sense. I remember in India when Jyoti Basu, he was quite old. He passed away and he donated his organs to medicine or science, and people said, and they more or less they responded, what are we going to do with a bunch of old organs? Nobody wants organs from an old man. You know, they want organs from somebody who died unexpectedly at a young age, like in a car crash or something. You know, they don't want organs from somebody who's 80 years old when they've all been trashed. All the organs are useless, trashed. Who wants a liver from an 80-year-old person? So then the question is, instead of just like going to the grave or going to the fire with their organs intact and then be cremated and rather than hacked to pieces, the question would be, are those organs going to be useful? Now, if they were going to be useful, then I could understand somebody donating their organs if they thought, oh, this is really going to make a difference. Somebody can use my organs because they're in good shape. That would be if somebody's relatively young or middle-aged.
Now, it used to be that you could sign up to be a donor. Now they've changed the law, so it's the other way around. Unless you opt out, you're automatically considered as a donor. So if you get killed in a car crash and you've not opted out of it, they can harvest your organs to help somebody else automatically.
Well, then one solution would be for people in that who are worried about that, they could just go to China and they can harvest their organs while they're still alive. If they're really disturbed, really concerned that they're going to harvest their organs when they die, whether they want to or not, just go to China and they'll harvest your organs by your own decree right while you're alive.
You may not be alive at the end of that, though.
No, of
Sadly.
course not. Of course not. But there's always some kind of collateral damage.
Yeah.
And in Spanish they say, mejor un tío que es la mejor. Bueno, ellos dicen en el reino de los ciegos el tuerco es tuerco, ¿no? or tuerto?
Tuerto, Maharaj, tuerto.
Tuerto.
Tuerto, yes.
In the kingdom of the blind, the man with one eye is king.
Mm.
So if, apparently, if somebody can become king with one eye, then it wouldn't be unreasonable for people to donate one of their eyes. They still have the possibility of being a king. Anyway, I don't know about this whole thing of donating organs. People should inquire whether they really want their organs or not. But anyway, you're saying you don't have a choice anymore.
Yeah, you do have a choice, but you have to specifically say, I don't want my organs to be harvested in the event of my death. You'd have to make a declaration or sign some kind of form to say that you don't want that.
That seems rather invasive to me. What gives them the right to just go picking through people's organs after they're
Yeah,
done?
exactly.
It's like,
Well, they say, well, you have the right to say that you don't want that done.
oh my God. That's what happens when you live in a socialist country.
Well, actually, that was brought in by the Tories, so
Oh,
that was their change in the law.
well, why would they do that? The Tories, they don't give anything to anybody.
Well, perhaps they're thinking we might benefit from that if later on we need that.
Oh yeah, when a Tory gets old and they need a new organ, it's good to get one. It's good to get an organ from a young person among the riffraff.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, very generous of them. Are there any other spiritual questions? What was that? A question? Was that from B Anonymous?
This is from Be Anonymous, yes, rather than Anonymous.
About what do we think of giving your organs for?
Yeah, donating your organs at the time of your death.
Well, according to what you say, it would be maybe intelligent for everybody to kind of as a pre, before things get out of hand, to just specify you don't want your organs donated to science, and then later on, if you decide you do want your organs donated, you can say, well, I changed my mind. But if you don't say anything, you won't be able to change your mind. They'll just as soon as you die, they'll be there picking through your eyes, and they'll say, "Oh, this person has a rather Romanesque looking nose. I could use a nose like that."
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
If sometimes we are unconsciously or being selfish, then what are we meant to do about that at times?
If we're what? Unconscious when what?
Sort of being selfish at times, what should we do about that, I guess?
Instead of being what? Selfish?
Yeah.
What do you mean selfish? Instead of being selfish at times, but when are you selfish?
I don't know, but sometimes I heard that from people.
Okay, I don't understand the question so much.
Okay, should I repeat?
Yeah.
So sometimes if we're being selfish, but we don't really know that we don't understand that, what should we do about it?
But selfish then according to who?
I guess to other people.
Yeah, but who's telling you that you're being selfish?
I don't know, like friends and things.
Oh. I don't know. Those friends tell you you're being selfish, but you're not aware that you're being selfish. If you're not aware, what can you do about it? You should ask them to explicitly define selfishness. In what way are you being selfish? And if they explain it in some way that you don't like, just tell them bug off. How does that seem like a good answer?
Okay, thank you.
No, wait a minute. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I don't know what you mean when you say, if you say people tell you you're being selfish. Sometimes people say that you're being selfish just because you don't agree with them. So I don't really know. I mean, you don't seem like, when I listen to you in Angamanchari, I don't notice that you're being selfish, but I'm not around you most of the time. So I don't know what people are referring to. That would seem to be, if people tell you you're being selfish, it may be that you're just not agreeing with their particular vision or their particular interest. I mean, I can understand if people say, you're being selfish about this, then you should ask them, well, then explain to me in what way I'm being selfish. And if they explain to you and you agree with them, then you can say, yes, okay, I accept that I was wrong. You can do that. But if they explain to you and you're thinking, well, I'm not in agreement with you, then you can just say, this seems a rather pejorative use of the word selfish, and I do not accept it. And you can tell them, my barrister will contact you in the morning. Can you do like that?
I'll try. Thank you.
Is that a good explanation? Devashis, is that a working explanation?
Yeah, I guess. Wow.
I do not agree with you, and my barrister will contact you about defamation of character. We're suing you.
What do you mean by barrister, though?
Means your solicitor, you're a lawyer. It's a joke.
I don't know. Sometimes people are right when they say you're being selfish, I guess, but sometimes people can just use that terminology to say that they don't agree with you. Then you can say, but then it's your opinion against mine, and since it is my opinion, I prefer to take my own opinion than your opinion. I mean, if they're going to say that you're selfish, they should be able to indicate to you why you're being selfish, because you can say we're interested in the plane of the sweet absolute with all rights reserved, and we don't necessarily accept the normal definitions by morality of what is selfishness, because I mean, I'm just saying, if somebody tells you're being selfish, they may be correct, but they have to be able to explain to you in what way you're being selfish. Then if they explain to you and you're satisfied with their explanation, you can say, yes, you're correct, and I will try to change. But if they cannot explain to you in what way you're really being selfish, You may say, no, I think there's some difference of opinion. I'm not of that opinion. And it may be that you're not of that opinion. So just, of course, if of course, because Ananga Manjari, you're fairly young, people can unfairly use your age against you. So a good way of looking at the thing is, first of all, never trust anybody over 30 years of age. That would be a good starting point.
But I can still trust you, right? Like
I don't know
over
about that. I am
over
over 30 years of age.
30.
No, I guess you can trust me. But I have never have I ever told you you're selfish?
No.
Well, there. You see? But I'm not around you during the daytime, so I don't know, you know, I guess all these things are they're kind of common. They're kind of common when people who are adults, they can very easily say to somebody they're selfish. But then if they really feel you're selfish, they should be able to explain to your satisfaction why they're right and you're wrong. I mean, I'm not saying to distrust people, but I think, why did they say you're selfish? What did you do that is there any reason you think that they're telling you that?
Some kind of argument from some time ago.
Okay. Well, it's hard to answer because I don't know the details of what they're saying, why they're saying you're selfish. But you seem to be rather to be a sensitive person. I don't think you're necessarily insensitive to the needs of others. Let me ask.
She's one of the least selfish girls we know.
What? What?
She's one of the Ananga Manjari is one of the least selfish girls we know.
Yeah. But obviously who told her she was selfish might have been an adult figure. I don't know. You're saying, what should you do about it? Find out why they say you're selfish, and if you agree with them, then you can agree to change.
Thank you.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
If you don't agree with them, then just pretend that you agree with them and shine them on. I'm full of good answers today, but I don't know. I'm going to be accused of corrupting youth. It's just that when I was younger, I could imagine somebody telling me that I was selfish, and of course they would be completely wrong in every instance. So that's why I might not want to accept that opinion. Did people ever tell you you were selfish, Devashis?
Yeah, all the time, Maharaj. Mostly myself.
Yourself? You would tell yourself that you're selfish?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's if I look at myself honestly, then I'm a very self-serving person.
Oh.
But I'd probably take great offense if somebody other than myself told me that.
You'd probably what?
Probably take great offense if somebody other than myself would tell me I was selfish.
Ah. But if you yourself tell you you're selfish, isn't that the very definition of selfish, that your own self would tell you that?
Yeah, probably.
I had a question on a similar sort of strain, if that's all right.
Okay, I didn't do so good with the last one, but go ahead.
I just wanted to ask how one would become more spiritual and start sort of a spiritual journey without like a selfish perspective, kind of wanting to better oneself or, yeah, be comforted and always kind of looking inward, because I feel like those are my main motivations at the moment.
I don't know. This is not my forte, this introspection kind of thing.
Mm.
How to become more directed towards, like, curing your own inabilities, etc., especially on a spiritual level. And Srila Govindamar said that in the morning you're supposed to be able to, well, I guess it would be towards the end of the day or something, give yourself some kind of report card, or so to speak, about how you've done. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did talk about beating your mind with an old shoe in the morning, right? And beating your mind with a broomstick in the evening. Isn't it something to that effect?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're dealing with all this kind of like mental beating, I guess it would make you more introspective if you're able to kind of control your mind. But from, I don't know. I've been more. I think I would be, one way of dealing with this would be to put yourself in the association of devotees, especially someone who's a little more advanced than yourself, and form their association. Srila Govindamar said he was interested in acquiring the good qualities of other persons. And if he saw somebody with good qualities, he would try to emulate that and to be able to take from them what he was able to get from them, in terms of saying that this person has good qualities and I wish to acquire some of these good qualities and try to consciously develop those good qualities. That would seem to me the way to do things. Otherwise, I don't know, because there's a saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So good intentions is not always enough. Someone can have good intentions, and I may make so many promises to myself that I will be able to change. And when everything is said and done, maybe sometimes I can consciously make some change. But I think to really develop more, I will need to form some association with a higher Vaishnava. If not necessarily a Param Vaishnava, not like, for instance, someone who I would consider a guru, but somebody who I could see that is on a higher spiritual level than myself, and then I will try to keep that person's association. Then I may learn something consciously from that person. because I'm more of the opinion that although I see good value in trying to acquire and to try and by my own, introspection to try and elevate myself, I think that's very noble. But to be practical, I think that you will need the association of Vaishnavas in order to develop. I mean, that's just my feeling. It could be that you could say, well, I don't live near any Vaishnavas, or only association I get with Vaishnavas is through mediums of internet, etc. But I'm not seeing Vaishnavas so much. I don't know. It's hard for me to be able to know a situation. For instance, do you have any friends who live near you who are devotees?
Not here in Newcastle, but I used to live in the same area as Francis and Gabriel.
As who?
Or
Very-
Chandra and Falguni.
Where did you live?
Just near Crouch End as well, Muswell Hill.
And how come you're in Newcastle now?
I studied here,
But
but I grew up in London.
Are your studies finished?
Yeah,
How long have they been finished?
maybe we had results in July, so and the last exams were, I think, the 10th of June, so quite a while now.
And will you, afterwards, will you go back to school?
I'm not sure. I'm kind of thinking about it at the moment. At the moment, I'm just working in a bakery, just making
Oh.
bread.
In Newcastle.
Yeah.
So you're originally there because of your studies, but now maybe you won't be continuing with your studies. So have you thought about going closer to where devotees are?
Yeah, I'm sure there is a community here. I haven't really found it, if there is.
How far is Newcastle from, for instance, where the devotees are?
It's a long way, man.
Huh?
It's a long way. It's north. We're getting close to Scotland. Newcastle's getting kind of close to Scotland.
Okay. Is it pleasant there?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. We've had a really warm summer and everyone's friendly.
Okay.
But like cliche.
Oh. So you work in a bakery?
At the moment I do, yeah. Making bread. But yeah, it's just sort of like an in-between job at the moment, I think, until I work out whether I want to continue studying.
Well, I guess then the next best thing is you can develop some serving relationship and respect in relation with the devotees. What are your main interests? For instance, do you have an interest in literature?
Mm-hmm. And I love drawing and yeah, making collages and films and yeah.
Are there any programs for continuing with book production in England, for instance? Devashis, do you know?
Not really, Maharaj. Not at the moment. more or less everything kind of moving onto an online thing, isn't it?
Mm.
That's perhaps true, but one of the consequences of things moving to an online situation is that then one comes in contact with what they call books on demand, which basically means that if you have a PDF of the book, then if the PDF is made according to the dimensions at which different printers can print, they can virtually, it's the same as having copies of the book, because within 2 weeks you can get as many copies of the book as you want by making an order. So it's kind of a nice modern situation, which means availability of books without having to print 2,000 copies or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's the future of publishing for us, perhaps, anyway.
Suvasini, how are you?
Dandavats Maharaj, I'm fine. How are you, Maharaj? How are you feeling?
Good. After they had me on antibiotics, and now I'm feeling okay. And yesterday, Vishaka was here, and I went seeing different places, went to collect from Indians for Janmashtami, mostly Boga.
Okay.
Which reminds me, I didn't.
Alma, you're welcome to come and visit us here in the Bhakti Yoga Institute.
There you go. That's nice.
And we do a lot of baking.
Thank you.
And we have an art course.
And lots of service.
Thank you.
Hello, Jairam. Sorry for that interruption.
I think the Siyama has a question, Siyama Sundari.
What's that? So, Elizabeth Odie, that's Induleka?
Yeah, Ali Beth, yes.
Dandavat Maharaj.
Oh, Ali Beth. I just looked at it quickly. I thought it was Elizabeth.
Dandavat.
Dhanyavad. ¿Cómo estás?
Bien. Y usted, qué bueno verlo que esté mejor. Se ve bien.
Sí. Bueno, antes no podía ver mi garganta.
Wow.
No, pero digo, si me dices que parece mejor, pero alguien no ve la garganta, entonces no se ve que su garganta está.
¿Qué era lo que tenía, Maharaj?
No, nada más estaba como,
Como una gripe.
bueno, algo como estaba, ¿cómo se dice? Como mucho tos.
Sí.
So, Devashis, what were you saying?
I wasn't saying anything much, but I think Saraswati said someone had a question.
Se llama Sundari, which we couldn't hear the question.
No, that's well, I was thinking about something. I don't know if it would be related to the topics of today, but if maybe you could explain whether, like, we all have, this is like a question a friend of mine was asking me and we were trying to think about it. If we all have like a purpose, like an individual purpose, or we all have the same purpose, I mean, in life. So if you could maybe speak about the purpose of life.
Well, I'll speak on a general level. There's a Bengali verse that says, Bharata bhumite hoila manusha janma sartaka kori kora parupakar. And it says, especially says, for those persons who are born in Bharatvarsha, which means India. But I would say, in one sense, since we're engaged in Krishna consciousness, we have a relationship with the conception being expressed in this Bengali verse. It says, for those persons who were born in Bharatvarsha, they are not just meant for enjoyment, but they are really meant for para upakar, for doing good to other persons. So I would consider that to be something, of course it's a very general comment, but this to me has very much to do with Krishna consciousness, that I'm not just interested in my own enjoyment or my own level of comfort, but rather, at least as a general purpose in life, I will consider that my existence is meant for trying to do some good for other persons. If I have some inter-reaction with other people, it should be of a nature that I will try to benefit other people. Otherwise, why am I relating with them? If I'm not going to be trying to help other people, then it would seem that my reason for relating to other people is, as Ananga Manjari said, selfish. That I'm just trying to utilize other people for my own enjoyment, which would be a definition of selfishness. But if I'm actually going to relate with other people as a person who's interested in actually what is spiritual life, Krishna consciousness, then my purpose should be to try and want to try and benefit other people. And how will you benefit other people? Well, I believe you'll benefit other people by trying to give them something of value in their own life. And the ultimate thing of value in their own life is Krishna consciousness. Like as the Bhagavad Gita says, a little advancement on this path will save one from the greatest fear. And it seems kind of very broad, but actually, if we see that most people in material life, they're actually very fearful. They're too busy trying to enjoy to address that fear, generally. But when they're faced with some kind of calamity or catastrophe in their life, they become very fearful. They don't know what's happening, and they become, like frozen with fear in many instances. We don't see that because it's not every day that we're confronted with a very fearsome or dangerous situation. But it can develop that dangerous situation can develop at any moment. For instance, Suppose you're driving in your automobile, and if you're not attentive, if you're not attentive, like one of your wheels can leave the pavement of the road. And if that happens, all of a sudden you may find yourself in a situation where your automobile is losing control. And when that happens, not only do people lose control of their automobile, but they lose control of themselves. Does this seem like a fair estimation or not?
Yeah.
You know, there may be a situation which will suddenly take people out of their insulated world and put them into a fearful situation. And it may not have to be that, you know, that pronounced for it to happen. Some slight incident may happen which all of a sudden changes your immediate environment, or if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, etc. And then the Gita says that even a little bit of advancement in Krishna consciousness can save one from the greatest fear. And you can understand that material existence, material life, is actually a very fearful situation, because one is so much involved in bodily consciousness that they can't really understand who they are or what's their situation, or more importantly, where they're going. And if I don't know where I'm going, you know, that's very dangerous. It's like, you know, we heard about, what is it that you've heard it, I don't know if there's a common term, like Judas sheep, something like that. Have you heard of that term?
No.
In relationship to like the slaughtering of animals, sometimes they'll use one animal that's a little trained to just lead other animals into slaughter. You know, so sometimes we're reassured of a situation in which we really shouldn't be reassured at all. We should be fearful of material existence to a certain extent. And what does that mean? One should always be afraid? No, one should have some spiritual understanding of one's own existence. One should understand the Lord and one's relationship with the Lord. And that will be a situation of value. And that will take one out of being afraid. So I would consider that like a lot of these questions that I was being asked today, like by Alma, by Ananga Manjari, they're kind of general situations, like one is accused of being selfish. Well, material existence means selfishness to begin with anyway. Or how can one develop one's own inner development? How can one advance in spiritual life? What steps are necessary? But I would really consider that as devotees, all of us should be taking Krishna consciousness very, very much to heart. And that would be a real way of benefiting other persons. I don't know, what was the original question? Because I don't think it was necessarily talking about how to help other people, but I brought that up as one of the purposes of life. What was the question?
Well, the question was that whether we have like an individual purpose in our life, or, you know, like a general or collective purpose. And basically, yeah, talking about the purpose of life.
Yeah, so you said a collective purpose. Well, I would think that they're both related, an individual purpose with a collective purpose. individually, I would consider that my relationship, if I'm normally we wouldn't think of a devotee as having so much. We would be thinking in terms of modern stereotypes that devotees are antisocial, that they're not really involved in the purpose of general society. And I think originally the Gaudiya Math was being harangued in that way. They were being said that they were in India. They were saying that the Gaudiya Math was taking people out of society and not preparing them to be contributing members of society. But then I think that a lot of that has to do with, what do you mean by not contributing to society? I think that what we are doing has a very integral relationship with society, that the purpose of the devotees is of the highest in value and highest importance to the development of society. Because if you have a society whose only interest is enhancing their mundane enjoyment, that would seem to be a rather frivolous view of life, frivolous view of what a society is all about, and to me, just very superficial understanding of existence. Is that my whole reason for existing, is just going to be for enjoyment? Because I would say, if that's really what people think it's all about, I would say they're really not going to enjoy old age very much. Because when people get old, their standard of enjoyment falls to new depths. Like, for instance, if they're really old, they're not going to be, those television shows like about survival, the survivors? People are competing to who can be the most adept at survival, right? Isn't that, they have all these survival games, right? So I remember there's one saying they have that I think the Marines, the Marines, they say, on the battlefield there are two kinds of persons, the quick and the dead. So I would think by definition, old people wouldn't be among the quick so easily. So they must be among the latter, the dead. Ishanuga, how are you?
Maharaj. Fine, and you?
Good. So I think it's kind of common in modern society that a lot of times old persons who are becoming a more and more greater percentage of the of society, they're not so equipped for, what is it? They're not so equipped to participate in society on some level of so-called enjoyment. Is that true?
Yeah.
So then it would seem that people whose whole conception that life is about enjoyment, then they're going to be, I would consider that those people are going to be rather disillusioned when they get old. Because we read about, for instance, we read about in the scriptures, like it's described, as kind of sometimes a criticism by the young ladies of Vrindavan, so to speak. They're criticizing that Krishna is interested in youth, that he's interested in a woman's youth. But how long will a woman's youth be with her? Just for a few fleeting days, so to speak. Which would give you some kind of orientation a little bit about, actually, there's some truth in that. I mean, the gopis are saying that as a criticism of Krishna. But there is also truth in that statement that people who live for the society, for the enjoyment, for levels of enjoyment, they may be put at a disadvantage competitively when they get older. Is that true? I
For
mean,
sure.
you know, like you see so many movies or so many stars, but when they get older, they're given some role as somebody's grandmother or something like that. They're no longer they're no longer, what's the word, the cynosure of every eye, right? Is that the right terminology?
Yeah.
They're no longer the focal point of every, they're not the center of attention. They're not being cast as the star. They're rather having, unless the movie's about old people. Anyway, I'm not trying to be dismissive, but I consider that I was making the point that Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that a little bit of advancement will save one from the greatest fear. So it is my contention that people in material existence are always fearful. They're always afraid because they're living on a rather tottering plane of existence. That padam yad vipadam. Every moment they're being and what would you say is the greatest fear of material existence? In material existence, nobody recognizes that they're an eternal soul. That kind of like self-identity, which is truth, it's of no value in modern society that people will consider that I'm an eternal spiritual living being. That's not going to get them very far in modern life, right? Then I'm an ever-existing eternal spiritual being. I'm an eternal servant of Krishna, which is Mahaprabhu's very definition of what it means to be a jiva alma, regardless of what species of life or what kind of life form one is in, that one is still an eternal servant of Krishna and without birth, without death and everything. But even we can say among devotees, how much do people dwell upon that subject? It's rather a basic point of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, Krishna says that a little advancement will save one from the greatest danger, because admittedly, we may not be very advanced in an understanding and realization of who we really are. But at least in the background, we have some understanding or knowledge of that eternal existence. And that would seem to be of value. Now, I don't know, but I believe it's really a good starting point. So let me go back to the question again. The question was, repeat.
It was about the purpose of life and whether it was like if we have an individual or collective purpose.
Well, I think we have both an individual and collective reason for living. Individually, we are understanding who we are, and collectively, as a contributing member of, I won't say of society, I'll just say, as a person, we have an individual reason for existence, which is spiritual. We're eternally servants of Krishna, but we also have a collective purpose of existence. Yeah. So collectively, also. Does that answer that question? I guess so. Something. Do you want to ask anything else, Shamasundari?
Thank you, Maharaj. Sorry. That does help me.
Yeah. I always like that verse. Sorry. Varta bhumite hoila manusha janma jar, janma sartaka kori kora paru upakar. That verse is in Bengali. It's not in Sanskrit. And as far as I understand, it's one of Mahaprabhu's instructions that he's saying. People who are born in Bharatvarsha in India, they're not like other people. They're not meant to just develop their material enjoyment, which is a good thing because India is not always so adept at being able to develop any kind of level of enjoyment. It would seem that, I would argue or say that that's the reason maybe India can't develop things properly in terms of enjoyment is that's really not who intrinsically they are. Maybe they don't realize that. Maybe the government doesn't realize that. But according to Mahaprabhu, that's not the purpose of having a birth in India. He's saying that's not the purpose. Your purpose is not to be able to develop your individual propensities for enjoyment. He said your purpose is to develop, to do good for other people. And I would say, although we're not necessarily born in India, still we have, by what we have accepted, who we have become, who we identify ourselves as, eternal servants of the Lord, we have developed that same kind of criteria for existence, which Mahaprabhu talks about. People, even if they're not Krishna conscious, Mahaprabhu says this is really what life is about for persons who are in contact with Indian civilization. Parupakar, they're meant for doing good for other persons. Does that seem like a valid reason for one's existence, that you're actually meant to benefit other persons, not just yourself? Or does that sound too idealistic? Be careful, because it was said by Mahaprabhu. What do you think?
Must be so.
Yeah. This says Maheshwari. Where is that Maheshwari from?
I am the Hungarian Maheshwari.
What?
I am the Hungarian Maheshwari Nandamat Maharaj.
Oh, Maheshwari. I haven't seen you in a long time.
Yes. I cannot go in these times.
Are you well?
Yes, I'm well. Thank you very much. I'm well.
Okay.
It's
Maybe if I ever make it over to England, you'll be able to go there.
definitely I will go. Yes.
Were you with Vishaka?
Yes. Vishaka was here also in my home and in other devotees' home. So we are waiting to her to come back in September.
Yeah, so yesterday I went to go to see some different Indian merchants and things like that collecting for Janmashtami, and Vishaka went with me, so it was very nice.
Yes, it's lovely.
I've known her since she was like 4 or 5 years old, or like that. Anyone else have a question?
Yes, Maharaj, I have a question. Talking about selfishness and the purpose of life and helping others, do you have any recommendation or suggestion of how can we actually do this sincerely? Or not only sincerely, but maybe effortless?
Effort what?
Effortless.
Why does it have to be effortless?
Well, sometimes we are so engaged in the daily life that sometimes perhaps we may feel tired. So then you might not be feeling like, oh, I really want to do this now. And then you push yourself to do it, which is always a good thing for you to do, especially when it's related to service. But
Well,
sometimes it doesn't become, let's say, natural. Is it with practice that it becomes natural?
All right, so individually it might, as you're saying, you might not have necessarily on an individual level the time or the energy to be able to do that all the time. So maybe for that reason we have, like, for instance, we have the West London Temple where people can cooperate with each other in order to be able to do that, or the East London Temple, or maybe another thing would be, if you're not so much in relationship with the temples, maybe do something like once a week, do some Nam Hatha program, either in your own house or in somebody else's house. But I remarked, I was reading in Chaitanya Bhagavat how before we always heard about the people who were in Navadip were so rather kind of annoyed with the endeavors that were going on in the Srivas Sangam of having all-night kirtans, and how different selfish Bengalis were complaining that we can't get any rest. They're all singing all night long. They keep us awake, and they're wailing and crying, and like a lot of fanatics and all that. We always hear those kind of criticisms, which of course did exist within society, because there were many persons who, they were too selfish to be able to appreciate Mahaprabhu's contribution, and they were envious, the nature of kind of demons, demoniac persons. But what we don't always hear about, which is also brought out in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, is that there were so many people in Navadip who were rather very happy with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and feeling sad that they couldn't get into Srivasangam, and they wanted to participate and help Mahaprabhu. So they used to bring garlands to his house and different things and give them to Mahaprabhu, because actually so many people really were attracted to Mahaprabhu, liked Mahaprabhu, had some desire to be with him. So then how Mahaprabhu responded to those people, he said that basically what he told them is, you organize Namhatas in your own house with 8 to 10 other people and have kirtan, distribute prasadam or whatever, but you try to do some Namhata programs, and that song by Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Nadia Godrume Nityananda, about Nityananda Ram having organized Namhata, like that. But the idea was that Mahaprabhu was telling the people how they could have programs in their own houses, have 8 to 10 persons, chant the holy names, and do like this among themselves. And then he specifically gave them the Maha Mantra, which we've also individually got, also collectively we've got. But you know, when someone is chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra without getting Nam Diksha from the Guru, from Gurudev, but in particular, we've all had Harinam initiation generally, and so we're all given, you know, the chanting of the holy name. And then once having that, we can have programs of Harinam, Kirtan, and everything going on in our house, or as I said, Nam Hata. So now, tell me the question again, because this is what I'm relating it to. That sometimes it's too much because we can't do those things individually so well because we don't always have time, right? Something to that effect. You were saying, Falguni.
Yeah, let's say that's part of the question, but it's more like how can we, it's definitely individual, make actions, whatever actions that we try, because I remember Gurudev always said, always think about Krishna. So, and anything you do, think about him, think about Guru. And when you do an action, whatever it is, how can you actually do it sincerely? And by doing it sincerely, I also mean by doing it effortless. I just gave an example of, you know, having an excuse for not doing service because I may feel too tired. That was just like an example. But in the daily life, perhaps to talk to someone about Krishna, sometimes you know you are going to find a wall when you talk to them about anything spiritual. So sometimes you just give up, which might be a little bit selfish in this regard, because it's like, you know what, I'm not going to put any effort on this person.
Well, but as strange as it sounds, I can understand that, because sometimes it may even be seen as beyond one's capabilities. But still, my example is that to put oneself in relationship with other people of similar mind and develop collectively with them, so that, as you're saying, it's, for me, it's beyond maybe my capability. I don't have that much energy. I don't have that much time. But then if you can do something among other persons who are of your mentality, then each one of them may be able to draw upon the others. They can draw something from you, your energy, and somebody else has a different level of energy. But because you're united in purpose, you can do something. I don't know, what, isn't that, aren't people doing that already on a kind of another level? For instance, people have similar interests and they form a business, right? And then the business, they may be collectively promoting some product or doing something, maybe providing some kind of service or providing some kind of product. But then it's not all upon one person. Of course, there may be individuals who have so much capacity because they're with infinite amounts of energy and time and everything, and they may be able to do something individually. But we ourselves may find, you may find that your own level of understanding is deeper than somebody, I mean, you may actually have a deep level of understanding, but you may not have the time to be able to implement that. And maybe somebody who is doing it all the time, they can present, but they're not so necessarily capable of or deep in their presentation. I think Srila Sridhar Maharaj made a comment that you need to put something in your own bank account, right? Isn't there something to that effect you can say, Devashis? What is it that?
Yeah, like that, Maharaj. Yeah, you have to have some. You have to have some capital of your own.
Yeah, you have to have some capital of your own. And your capital may be greater than a person who's distributing so much. They may not have that much to distribute because their understanding of distribution may be superficial. That they're just doing it on the basis of, yes, I want to be able to distribute, so I'm doing this, but without having accumulated much capital, how much can they distribute? We see many persons like that. They're actually engaged in some kind of distribution, but their own level of understanding is not very deep. So there is something that you have to be able to develop your own capacity in order to be able to distribute to others. But then I'm also saying that if you form some working relationship with other people, it doesn't necessarily have to be that everything's coming from my own account. I mean, isn't that what they're doing in temples? For instance, in a temple, you have a restaurant, so you're cooking, right? So somebody in a temple, they may be cooking. They're just like we saw Lavanya Moyi. She's in the kitchen. Who's Sambhavi Bhagi?
Shama Sundari.
Oh, Shama Sundari. Okay, so somebody is in the temple and they can cook very nicely. So they're doing that aspect. They're serving the Lord by cooking for the Lord. Somebody is inclined to engage in deity worship. So they're dressing the deity, bathing the deity. Somebody's more inclined to preaching, and they're in the temple, they're giving some classes or some readings. So collectively, they're taking something from this person and something from that person and something from another person, and collectively they're able to build upon that and have, a complete package, so to speak, or something complete, right? And maybe your own participation is on the level of what you can contribute. But you're saying, well, I don't necessarily have the ability to engage with other people. I don't have the time, I don't have the proclivity towards doing that, etc. So maybe you don't have to if you're able to work with other persons. Someone else may say, I'll handle this aspect. I'll handle the distribution. Somebody says, I'll work with the preaching or the talking to other persons. And somebody is working with the, so many different levels of what's going on in the temple. So I would think that that's also one answer to the question that I don't have so much individual time or capacity. Then maybe form some working relationship with others who do have that. So, do we have any more questions? Is that okay?
Yes, Maharaj, thank you.
I also find that inhibition sometimes. Sometimes I'm traveling and I get in a conversation with persons and I'm really at a loss as to how to understand how can I communicate with this person. Because I might think, well, what's my level of communication? It's one thing if somebody's traveling and, they meet somebody and they're thinking, and by appearance, maybe there's a lot in common with that person, that person's that person's from London, I'm from London, you know, and that person is from this level of society. This person's interested in this political party. This person's interested in this level. And maybe the persons find very much in common. And then they can have some conversation, and the devotee is able to enthuse that person. But what about the case where something, for instance, somebody may think, oh, you're a sannyasi, so you have the ability to reach other people and to talk with them and engage them in Krishna consciousness. But sometimes it's not like that at all. For instance, when I was in Hong Kong, I saw that that there were many persons who came there for instance, they were dressed in sports coats with ties. They were actually Mormons. They were Mormon preachers. And people could identify that with that because it seemed to represent something of modern society. That these people are religious workers, but they're religious workers in terms of the, you know, tenets of modern society. That they seem to be like a modern understanding of what is Christianity, etc. Whereas if I would be, for instance, on the Kowloon ferry going to Hong Kong from Kowloon, the people would see me and I'm dressed in robes, so maybe they didn't know anything about Krishna consciousness, but they certainly knew something about Buddhism. So they're looking at me and they're thinking that I'm a Buddhist monk, or what they could at least understand as a monk. And since they didn't necessarily feel very much, so to speak, camaraderie with a monk, you know, what can I talk to a monk about? I don't want to be roped into some conversation about how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. I'm not really interested in these ecclesiastical kind of esoteric conversations. So I'll rather avoid this person. I'll move somewhere else. He sat down next to me and I'd see this. People would stand up and go change their seat and go to a different part of the bus. But they wouldn't do that so much with the Mormons because there rather is a level of, they see they're in shirt, pants, and ties. So they seem to represent something of modern society. I know they're religious, and I can see just by the badge that they have on their white shirt with their tie and white shirt and this badge. Just seeing that badge, I know exactly who they are. They're Mormon preachers. But people in Hong Kong, they didn't mind that. But when they'd see me, for instance, I'd remind them of Buddhism. Because they could see I'm a monk, and maybe Buddhist monks have a different color of clothes. But they figured, I don't want to necessarily be sitting next to a monk, and I don't want to have a monk blabbing in my ear the whole time while I'm traveling. So they would change seats. So what am I saying by that? I'm just saying that, you know, that sometimes you may find yourself in a situation where you don't feel that you have a platform for engaging in conversation very easily with a person, because they may have some prejudice, they may have some misconception about what you look like. You're, so to speak, a white person, a white boy, and you're in Asian clothes, dhoti, kurta. You have a shaved head. They're thinking, oh, what am I getting into? I don't really want to sit next to this person anyway. So they would change seats. But they wouldn't have that kind of worry about sitting next to a Mormon. They're thinking, oh, that the people were thinking, oh, I wasn't born as a Mormon, and these are Westerners, and I'm interested in what's going on in the West. So they could relate to those persons because it didn't challenge their own self-identity. You know, they're thinking I'm British and this is an American, and it doesn't challenge me. I mean, Hong Kong people would think that they're British, right? When I was there, at least a lot of them had British passports. But in answer of Falguni's question, then maybe you can do something, since you don't have so much energy, maybe you can do something collectively with other persons. What part of London do you live in?
Live in the northeast. Basically north, more than east.
So are there any temples in that area?
No. The closest one is the Oxford Street from ISKCON, but then we got, I usually go with Saraswati with her food distribution program from time to time. Hopefully I'll bring Alma with me next time.
What do you do? What kind of food do you distribute?
The temple, in the West Temple, they have a massive food distribution program. They do it 3 times a week, and they send prasadam to, I don't know, like 500 meals. Is that right, Saraswati? That you do a week?
Yes, it varies. It can be 100, 115, 120.
Yeah.
So what do you distribute? Do you distribute hot cross buns?
We do actually. we just actually Falguni came and she helped and she made the kidney beans stew, and Ramananda made baked potatoes, and I made some cinnamon rolls because we had a lot of flour donated and we have to utilize it and give it make something and distribute.
Is today Ekadasi there or not?
It is.
Oh, okay. So tomorrow you can distribute hot cross buns.
Yeah, tomorrow is Lavanya is cooking actually. She's cooking noodles.
Who?
Lavanya, Maggie. It's her day to cook tomorrow for the masses.
Oh, good.
Narada is coming to help tomorrow. Narada is the Thursday helper and Falguni is the Tuesday helping. Falguni is an excellent cook, by the way. She is.
I'm learning from Saraswati, which is very impressive, I have to say.
Oh. Well, I'm kind of running out of energy.
There was another question, but maybe we can leave it for next time, Maharaj.
What is the question?
It's somebody sent it to me. It's in the topic of Jive Doya Name Ruchi and Vaishnava Seva.
I also have a question, Maharaj.
Who said that?
Mahamantra Prabhu.
All right. So let's do the 2 questions. What's the first one about?
Maybe Mahamantra, can you go ahead with yours?
Okay, what is your question, Mahamantra?
Maharaj, my question is that what can one do, or what should be the attitude towards those friends, who devotees friends, that have disconnected from the association of the devotees, or yeah.
Your favorite one.
And why have they disconnected from the association of devotees?
Actually, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the reason.
And when one had friendship with them, it was during the time that they were connected,
Yes,
and now they've lost interest.
exactly.
I don't know. There's so many reasons why people lose interest. I'm trying to. I mean, this is a rather common occurrence. It's even common among devotees that their own sons or daughters may not maintain interest. Especially when they get older. Because then people become carried away by these interests of society, friendship, and love. We've heard of that, right? Sometimes due to social peer pressure, one cannot remain so active in Krishna consciousness. I even heard from people who were from India who had met with the devotees who became devotees and are still good devotees, but they were saying where they worked, they couldn't even, for instance, observe or openly observe Ekadasi. When it was Ekadasi days, they had to hide why they weren't eating grains because they were subject to ridicule from their associates. Does that sound logical? But it's true, especially in India, where they couldn't actively show that they were observing Ekadasi. So if somebody would ask, why aren't you eating grains today? They'd say, oh, I don't feel so well, so I'm not eating anything heavy, etc. They were actually afraid to say that, oh, because it's Ekadasi, so I'm not eating grains. And why they were afraid to say? Because they were afraid that they would become ridiculed by their associates. And sometimes people become ashamed to say that they're related with devotees. Even if they are devotees, they can say, their friends may say, oh, aren't devotees, aren't those crazies that sing and dance in the street and play tambourines, beat on tambourines or something like that? Indicating that there's a certain amount of peer pressure from people that they don't remain devotees, isn't it? And you can see that maybe even your son or daughter would not be able to maintain their level participation in Krishna consciousness because they're encountering some, what can you say, some pressure from their friends not to be devotees. Oh, you're a devotee? What are you, some kind of crazy? You're one of those crazy people that are always begging and singing and dancing in the street? Why would you do that? If somebody said to you, well, you're one of those people that beat some what do they call them? Bongo drums on the street and beg for money. Why would you do that? Then, especially if the person's young, they may feel intimidated by their friends. Therefore, Guru Maharaj, he wrote, God save us from our friends. But one may feel some intimidation from people that one knows. And like this, people become ashamed to say that they're devotees because there's some peer pressure on them. Well, why are you interested in that? Are you some kind of a nut job? Is that true? Or do you
Sure.
also? One person who I met while I was traveling once, he said, "Oh, you're one of those persons who wears gossamer gowns." I wouldn't really characterize a dhoti in kirtan, or even a sari. I wouldn't necessarily characterize it as gossamer gowns. You know what is gossamer? Rather kind of like fine, like a spider web, like a spider, the weaving of a spider, something like maybe they can see through your clothes. A rather pejorative, you know, just a way of making people feel ashamed to be devotees. So then people may have different reasons why they're no longer, why they don't want to stand up to peer pressure and and show themselves as a devotee. I'm not so interested in this anymore. But if they weren't subject to being ridiculed by other people, maybe they would have some interest. Is that true, or
Yes, Maharaj, I understand that, but my question goes more towards I have always, this has happened to me, like not only one time, but several times since I got the association from the devotees, that I have seen people going away for many reasons. And I have always tried to have this like friendly attitude towards them, despite that they may not be interested, like having any connection. But my question will be, it's okay to keep trying, or
yeah, why not? Why would it not be okay? It's okay to keep trying to maybe develop a relationship with that person with the intention of helping the person come back to Krishna consciousness. I don't see anything wrong with that. As you say, it may not be successful, but there may be so many reasons why people give up on Krishna consciousness. One person told me that in the beginning they had a really, you might say, a very shallow idea of what is Krishna consciousness. They thought you could chant and dance and take prasadam, and that would be enough for one spiritual advancement. And then they said later they heard about the concept of sharanagati, of surrendering oneself. And they felt very much uncomfortable with that idea that, oh, now something, in the beginning, everything was rather superficial, that I just had to chant and dance and take prasadam, and that would be enough for my spiritual life. But now I'm hearing that in addition to these superficial things, now I have to develop some internal quality of sharanagati, of surrendering myself. And that seems to be rather unfair. Why am I being asked to do this? One person actually expressed it to me like that. Why am I being asked to engage in sharanagati, as surrendering? We weren't told about that originally when we came to Krishna consciousness. No one told us we had to ultimately surrender. So now I feel rather betrayed and cheated, because it wasn't asked of me to surrender before. Now somebody's springing something new upon me, that you have to be a surrendered soul. Why am I being tricked later in my life that I have to surrender? What would you say about that? Isn't that rather kind of, cheating to suddenly talk about having to surrender? Before there was no talk about that.
Maharaj, before was only chant and be happy, right?
Yes. And now, You have to be engaged in Sharanagati. You have to surrender. Why am I being tricked like this? One person actually told me like that. No one told me in the beginning I had to surrender. Now I'm being told I have to surrender. But in the beginning it was just chant, dance, and be happy. And there was nothing mentioned about surrender. So now I feel I'm being cheated. What could you do? How will you reassure that person? Anyway, this was Maha Mantra's question. What other question did we have? We have one other question from Saraswati. What was your question?
It's Krishna Mohini Didi's question. She would like if you could speak on the topic of Jiva Doya, Name Ruchi, and Vaishnava Seva. I don't know if there is enough time, or if you would like to leave that for next week.
I think maybe we'll leave that for next week. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Where is Krishna Mohini? Oh, there she is. What is her question about?
Is to talk about Jiva Doya, Name Ruchi, and Vaishnava Seva.
Yeah, originally we see many times Mahaprabhu is telling to the residents of, I think it's Kalinagram, he's saying, they asked him, what is it? They're asking Mahaprabhu what their duties in life are. And he says, chant the holy name, engage in Krishna Nam, and Vaishnava Seva, serve the Vaishnavas. And then they ask him, well, how can I know who's a Vaishnava? So then in successive years, he gives the different levels of understanding. Who's a Kanishta Adhikari, who's a Madhyama Adhikari, and who's the exalted Vaishnava that we're supposed to surrender our whole life to. So there's those considerations of chant the holy name and serve the Vaishnavas, and then who's a Vaishnava? Well, a Vaishnava is who has at least one time in their life chanted the holy name. Okay, he's a Kanishta Adhikari. But you're to keep some association with that person. Then another level of Vaishnava that Mahaprabhu mentions the next year is somebody who's always engaged in Krishna consciousness, and in their internal development, they're always serving the Lord in Vrindavan. I think that's one of the definitions of a Madhyama Adhikari. And then when he's asked again, Mahaprabhu gives the definition. These are actually understandings of who are different Vaishnavas. One person has just been initiated, chanting the holy name, they're a Kanishta. Then one person is always conscious of one's service relationship with the Lord and is always internally chanting the holy name and serving the Lord in Vrindavan. That's a Madhyama Adhikari. And then the Uttama Adhikari, Mahaprabhu defines as somebody whose very presence makes you want to chant the holy name. Just by them being there, you're desirous of chanting the holy name. So those are Mahaprabhu's answer to people of Kalinagram. But then the Chaitanya Bhagavad has also mentioned the idea that Jiva Doya. Jiva Doya means to have mercy on the conditioned souls. And it's also said in relationship with Jiva Goswami, but that's a further definition of Jiva Doya, of having mercy upon the conditioned souls. So we're supposed to have some mercy on other persons. And that's also brought up as the third thing. We heard about chanting the holy name and serving the Vaishnavas, and now we're also hearing about, having some mercy upon the conditioned soul, wanting to help people. So that's my understanding of Mahaprabhu's, the full expression of Mahaprabhu's, what he expects of people. Chant the holy name, serve the Vaishnavas, and have mercy on the conditioned souls. Right? You have some other question about that?
Thank you. And
Okay, done. Okay, we can start with this question next week also. If you want, Krishna Mohini, if you want to talk about it next week, you can also speak about it. We can talk about the whole incident with Jiva Goswami and everything, Mahaprabhu. Okay. So for now, I'll say goodbye to everybody.
Dandavad Maharaj.
Dandavad Maharaj. Dandavad. Please forgive me for being dismissive of any, if I've just been dismissive of questions, like I didn't answer Ananga Manjari very good when she asked me, what can I do to not be, people accuse me sometimes of being selfish. What can I do when people accuse me of being selfish? See, because Ananga Manjari, she's young, she has to be sensitive to that question because she can't be too argumentative with people. But if somebody says that to me, I can just be, harumph, who do you think you're talking to? But Krishna Mohini, Ananga Manjari, she can't just dismiss people like that because she's young. If somebody tells her, why are you being so selfish? Then she has to be, oh, really, I'm sorry. She has to be like that. Whereas if we said that to somebody like, for instance, if somebody said that to who? Like one of the older devotees, they could say, why are you being so selfish? And then they could just say, come again? Come again? What do you mean by that? Like nobody, for instance, somebody's older. No one will say to Saraswati, why are you being so selfish? She doesn't have to she doesn't have to answer to that kind of condemnation, right? Is that true?
I don't know.
No, you don't have to. If somebody accuses Subhadra of being selfish, then she has to answer to that. But Subhadra's mother doesn't have to answer that. See, this becomes, then what is my implication? My implication is that this kind of question is why they're selfish. It's rather a question of, what would I say? It's a question of unfairly belittling younger people. Like Devashis. What's your youngest daughter? What's her name?
Malini.
Malini. And if somebody says to her, why are you being so selfish? She doesn't have to stand for it, right? She can put her foot down and say, what do you mean by that? Who are you?
Yeah, she probably would, yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, we'll see you all next week.
Jai Maharaj.
Dandavad.
Dandavad to all everyone.
And
Dandavad.
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 Maharaj.
Jai Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardan Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Dandavad, Subhasini Dandavad.
Dandavad Maharaj.